Good evening, everybody. Thank you for listening to J-Ho the Sports Dude. I'm your host, J-Ho, talking all New England sports. Thank you for listening. Let me shut this off. All right, then. So today we got a lot of stuff to talk about with two playoff series. One going really well, the other not really. And then we'll also talk about the Red Sox, and then we'll go from there. But first, I have a very special guest on my show. One of my pals who I've known for a while, who's graduated with me. How about introduce yourself?
How's it going, guys? I'm Ben Baptiste. I'm a good friend of J-Ho, and I'm excited to be on the show, and appreciate you having me out here.
Yeah. Since we're both graduating, how do you feel?
You know, man, it's a bittersweet feeling. I've been here for 4 years. Yeah, ready to get out of here, but also, gonna miss all the special memories and everything we've had here.
Yeah,
it's an awesome place.
Yeah, we've had some great memories from crazy stuff in Southwest and all the parties and all the shenanigans and all the work. I mean, and now we're on to the next chapter, I guess.
Absolutely, we're moving on. But you can look back and have the great memories we had.
Yeah. What's your greatest memory from UMass?
Oh man, I'd say even just within the past few months, our hockey team, finally getting a good sports outing, almost taking home the ship. It would have been nicer if they won it all, but finally having a good sports team that you can, stick behind.
Yeah. For me, this actually isn't close. My favorite moment at UMass was when the Patriots beat the Falcons in Super Bowl 51, and we ran outside and we rioted.
That had to have been, probably.
That was my favorite moment by far at UMass ever.
I can't even tell you the amount of random people I hugged that night,
Yeah. I don't remember everything that happened. I remember screaming and jumping up and down. And
yeah, a lot of chaos.
I think I climbed on somebody's shoulders or something. Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past you.
Yeah. So that was my favorite memory from UMass. So also before we get into sports, why don't we get into some pretty important business? We're both Game of Thrones fans.
Oh, I'm a pretty avid Game of Thrones fan, I'd say.
Yeah. So don't worry, we won't spoil anything, but we'll try not to give any big spoilers for episodes for people that haven't seen the episode or aren't Game of Thrones fans. But and we'll make this quick. So what did you think of the new episode?
There's been a lot of hype around season 8 in general, but the most recent episode, there's a lot going on in every single storyline, and I think that the producers are, they're setting up everything up in a pretty efficient way. This most recent episode wasn't as, action packed or thrilling, but every series has those episodes that are, more setting up for a greater storyline, as we'll see in the next episode.
Yeah, I'll just say this. Going into that episode, I actually didn't have a ton of expectations because you already had the big battle, so I didn't really know where you could go after the big battle. And I thought, Emily Clark, I believe, said episode 5 was the one that everybody should be looking forward to. Yep. So I'm like, okay, so then what about episode 4? But I actually it really surprised me because one, I thought it went back to one thing I liked about Game of Thrones was the politics and the strategy. Right. Fighting is great, but what makes Game of Thrones unique is the strategy and the politics and all that stuff. And without spoiling anything, Battle of Winterfell I really enjoyed, but I can't say I was surprised by anything. I was actually a little surprised by some of the stuff that happened in the new episode.
Yeah. I mean, the last episode, the battle, there's so much around it. You were thinking that there's gonna be so many main character deaths and all this chaos, and they throw you a little curveball at the end. But yeah, this most recent episode, I didn't really have many expectations going in either, but. You never really know with the show. They can throw you so many curveballs, so I usually go into every episode not expecting, the obvious.
Yeah, I can't really wait to see what happens next.
Yeah, it's gonna be
All right,
exciting.
on to sports. So first, let's talk about the Boston Bruins, who were able to defeat the Columbus Blue Jackets in 6 games. I'll just go over each game very quickly, and then we can talk about what we took away from this series. Game 2 was kind of the opposite of game 1, in which the Bruins lost in double overtime, 3-2 against the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Blue Jackets outshot the Bruins 41-31. They outhit Boston 49-42. They scored 2 goals on power plays. Bruins only had 1 goal on power play. Giveaways, Bruins had 14. Columbus had 9. And Matt Duchene had a goal for Blue Jackets, and Bobrowski had saved 29 shots, and Tuukka Rask saved 38 shots. Game 3 was basically an offensive dead zone for the Bruins. Offensively, they were pretty dreadful for most of this game. The Bruins had 37 shots, and the Blue Jackets had 34 shots, they were completely out-hit in that game. 53 hits by Columbus and 28 hits by the Bruins. And on the power play, Bruins were 0 for 2, Columbus was 1 for 3. And just a complete no-show offensively. After it was 2-0 Blue Jackets, then that game was over. I would say in the first 2 games, the special teams were pretty awful and was the reason why they lost those games. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, as you can see, just like first few games, they were definitely outplayed. But I was glad to see how they came together as a team, and the next few games, just played overall just better hockey.
Yeah.
They put the first few games behind them and then move forward, and that's what you got to do, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah, and also in game 2 and 3, the top line. I mean, actually, I don't think. The top line especially didn't really show up offensively, and that would change in game 4. So let's move on to game 4. So in this game, the Bruins basically dominated. They got up 2-0, and then Columbus scored a bit of a controversial goal. Mm-hmm. And then shots, Bruins had 46. Columbus has 40. Hits, Bruins had 25. Columbus had 30. Penalty minutes, Columbus had 22 and Bruins had 8. And Bruins improved on their power play, scored 2 goals on 6 power play opportunities. And Columbus had scored no goals on power play opportunities. Patrice Bergeron had 2 goals. Darren Pastrnak had a goal and assist. And they definitely responded on the power play. And Game 5 was crazy. So for a while, nobody was able to score in that game. And so at first, the Bruins, first no scoring, and then the Bruins scored in the second period. And then you thought the game was over when they got up 2-0. And then Columbus scored a goal, and then you were worried. And then the Bruins scored another goal. And then you were like, okay, that sounds good. They're probably going to win. And then next thing you know, Columbus scores 2 straight goals. And then I'm really, really worried. Did you see this game?
I did, yeah. It was very back and forth. You had you on your edge of the seat, the whole time.
I thought they were going to lose because momentum. And I didn't want them to go to overtime because, usually bad things happen in overtime.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. But then Pastrnak just scored a goal to win the game with about a minute left. And then the Bruins won 4-3. David Pastrnak had 2 goals. Brian Marchand had a goal and 2 assists. So the top line definitely showed up for this game. So And then before we go into the next game, why don't we talk about John Tortorella, the coach of the Blue Jackets, who decided to open his mouth before Game 6, and he said that they were going to win and they were going back to Boston, but then also that they found a dent in Tuukka Rask. So what do you think of that?
I mean, it's just like any sports team, you never it's a tough situation. You never want to open your mouth and start talking, but because instances like this, it comes back to bite you. And Tuca played phenomenal, and he's been playing amazing, and it just comes right back at you, and it also gives the Bruins some firepower and something to play for.
Yeah. I thought the only dent he found was in his mouth. So.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. And so we move on to Game 6 in Columbus. So for a while, this game was a little weird. You could say Columbus outplayed the Bruins for a while, but they just couldn't find the net. Like you said, Tuukka Rask was amazing, and then Boston was able to get the first goal in the second period, and then there was that pretty bad hit by Charlie McAvoy, which I thought was pretty stupid, and we'll get into that a little later because he's been suspended for Game 1. So, and then in the third period, the Bruins scored 2 goals, and then that's all she wrote, and then the game ended. So, Columbus has had 38 shots. Bruins had 29 hits. Columbus completely out-hit the Bruins 43-19, but Bruins only had 1 power play, and Columbus was 0 for 4 on power plays. So, and because of that, they just weren't able to win this game. And David Krejci had a goal and assist, and Marcus Johansson had a goal. And Tuukka Rask had maybe the best game of his career.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The only one I could think of that maybe matches up was against the Penguins in 2013, Game 4, I believe, when they swept the Penguins.
Right.
When I believe they won like 1-0. Tuukka Rask had an amazing game. So
crazy saves. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about the series. So I would say I think the MVP for this series is Tuukka Rask, who is able to steal this series, because even certain games when Tuukka Rask was always consistent. He never allowed the teams to score. He never allowed, except for Game 5, to score more than end Game 2 to score more than 3 goals. And so what was so how do you look at Tuukka Rask? Because for a while, I mean, I've been critical on him a lot. So
yeah, I mean, Boston's a pretty critical town or city, but I think Tuukka's he's played his heart out especially from the last game. I hope he can carry it over to the next series the way he brought the fire, and he played phenomenal. And just if he can keep playing that way, making these great saves and just holding teams below 2 goals, as you said, the Bruins are in good shape.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely props to Tuukka Rask, and also I give credit to David Krejci, who's a veteran for the team, who I believe has played well. Also, you get some good good depth play from people like Marcus Johansson. Absolutely. And also when the top line has shown up, they've really shown up. And Patrice Bergeron, maybe not the best offensive numbers, but definitely good on the defensive end. So definitely a very physical and very well-deserved series win by the Bruins. Yeah. And next, they play the Carolina Hurricanes, who are a very good team. I'll preview the series for them later, but definitely not to take lightly. But I don't know. I have a good feeling about this team. It just kind of seems like everything's just lining up perfectly for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, all right then. Why don't we move on to the next topic? Let's talk about the Boston Celtics. Yippee!
Oh boy.
Okay, here we go. All right. So let's start up. So Game 1 was actually really good for the Celtics. Yeah. They started very well. In the first quarter they outscored the Bucks 26-17, but then the Bucks evened it up. In the second quarter, outscoring the Celtics 33-26. Then in the third quarter, the Celtics outscored the Bucks 36-21 and 24-19 in the fourth quarter, and won 112-90. So very good offensive and defensive performance by the Celtics in Game 1. Kyrie Irving had 26 points, and Giannis had 22 points, but was for 7 for 21. So Tatum and Al Horford had 20 points, and Jaylen Brown had 19 points. So pretty good Game 1 performance
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it was one of their cleaner one of the cleanest basketball games I've seen them play all year. Especially in that third quarter, they were just offensively and defensively just on point with everything they were doing. If you can hold, Giannis to 22 points on 7 of 21 shooting, it's a pretty good night, I would say.
Yeah, unfortunately after that, things kind of went downhill. So let's go down the rabbit hole together. Okay, so in the game 2, the Celtics started off well again. They outscored the Bucks 30-25 in the first quarter, and then in the second quarter, Milwaukee bounced back 34-25, and then in the third quarter, they completely pooped their pants and they got outscored 39-18, and then that was the game, and they got their butts whooped 112-102. Marcus Morris was their leading scorer. Yeah, that tells you something.
Yeah,
and
it tells you.
And Giannis. You know how you said it was impressive to limit him to 22 points? Yeah, that wouldn't happen again.
No.
So he scored 29 points, and then basically they got blown out. Kyrie had 9 points. Jaylen Brown had 16 points, so he was okay, and Al Horford had 15 points. So and Chris Middleton also had 28 points, and Bledsoe had 21 points. So just a pretty awful effort by the Celtics. But, hey, going out of that, you were like, okay, they got their butts whipped. But when you don't have home court advantage, you want to win a road game.
Yep, and they got one.
And then you thought they would win at home. Let's go into that.
No.
So game 3, it started off pretty well. You see a pattern here.
Yep, exactly.
So Boston outscored in the first quarter Milwaukee 30-25, and then in the second quarter they got outscored 30-26. In the third quarter 40-31, and then unfortunately the fourth quarter was close. Boston outscoring Milwaukee 29-28, but unfortunately it just wasn't enough, and Milwaukee was able to put the Celtics away. Giannis had 32 points. And Kyrie Irving had 29 points, but was 8 for 22 from the field.
Right.
So Giannis had 32 points. Middleton had 20 points. George Hill had 21 points, so good for him. Jason Tatum had 20 points, so he had a decent game. Morris had 16, but defensively they were just pretty awful.
Yeah, I think this series is so it's pretty special to just play very strong defense, and that's probably the key to winning, especially with Giannis on the other side. But first game was promising, and from there on out, I feel like it's only gotten worse and worse.
Yeah, and speaking of worse, let's move on to game 4. Tell me if you heard of this. So first quarter, Boston outscores Milwaukee 30-22, and then the second quarter they got outscored 25-19. Then in the third quarter, they got outscored 33-23, and then next thing you know, fourth quarter, they got outscored 33-29. And Kyrie Irving also said that he wouldn't have another 8 for 22 performance, and he didn't. He had a 7 for 22 performance with 23 points, and Giannis had 39 points.
Yep, that was just a tough outing, especially with Kyrie. Kyrie's just... he says he's a leader, and you want to see it from him really bad, but he's just not showing up. And him walking off the court is just, it's just not very promising for the Celtics right now in any aspect.
Yeah, Horford had 20 points, but was 8 for 16 from the field. Jaylen Brown had 16. Tatum had 17, and Morris had 18. But get this, Gordon Hayward had 2 points.
Yep,
2 points.
It's pretty tough stat line if you want to win a basketball game from one of the bigger players.
All right, let's go over this disaster. So, let's take out game 1, because at this point, game 1's kind of a distant memory.
Yep.
So game 1. So looking at this series, you knew Giannis was going to be good, but you didn't want him to dominate, because if he did, it would put you in a bad position. But basically, Giannis has dominated this series so far, minus game 1. So. They haven't. So you thought that they had a way of guarding him? Not really.
No, not at all. And I mean, they did. I mean, the first game, obviously, it seems like forever ago, but they had answers for Giannis in all aspects of the game. But I don't know, that just didn't carry over for the next 3 games.
Yeah, and also they can't guard Chris Middleton for their life,
right?
Because why not? And then also, what really stands out to me about the Celtics right now is they've been pretty god awful in the third quarter. Guess how much they've been outscored in the third quarter?
I'd have to say
112 to 70.
That's bad.
In the third quarter. If you combine minus game one, if you combine the third, I did the math. You combine the scores in the third quarter and if you combine all their third quarters in the games they've lost, they've gotten outscored by 40.
That's pretty bad. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, and it stinks because if you look at the first game, they outscored the Bucks 36-21. In the third quarter itself, and they had one of their best quarters of the season, in my opinion. But they lost it. They lost their composure. I feel like everyone is just they're honestly exhausted from Giannis's reign.
Yeah, and basically everybody deserves blame for this. Basically, yeah, Kyrie, like you said, has not been a leader, and he's put up points, but they're meaningless points, and he's been inefficient. Jason Tatum has been inconsistent. Same with Al Horford. Jaylen Brown has been inefficient as well. Terry Rozier and Aaron Baines have sucked, and Gordon Hayward has been trash. 2 points? Yep. Seriously?
That's bad.
2 freaking points? My God. And, I mean, they've been out-rebounded. They've been out-shoot. They've been out-hustled. They've been out-coached. Brad Stevens hasn't made the right adjustments. And, yeah, they're down 3-1, and I don't think they can come back.
Yeah, it's not looking promising, as I said, but, if they can, go back to the roots of game one and, find some answers for Giannis, because, last game he was just unstoppable. There was no answers for him at all. But if you can stop their best player, make other people score, Chris Middleton, who's an elite shooter, but, he's not their number one. But if you can make them score, then hopefully there's another chance, but not looking very, very hot for the Celtics.
Yeah, honestly, I don't really have a lot of faith in them. I think this series is over. Even if they win Game 5, which they're pretty capable of, I just don't think it's going to be enough because you put yourself in this much of a hole, and to come back, you would have to. First of all, the Bucks would have to not play as well as they have, and the Celtics, they can play a lot better. These games that they've lost haven't really been that close. You would think that with Kyrie there, and you have these playmakers at the end of games. If it was close games, you give the edge to the Celtics. But these games haven't been that close, so it hasn't really mattered.
Yeah, and it gets down to it. If they're mid fourth quarter and they're down a good amount, you just don't really see the heart from any of the players to come back. If Kyrie was the leader he says he is, you would see him putting in way more effort offensively and defensively, to try and get them back into it, but. You just don't really see it from this team. Last year you had Kyrie was out, and last year you could see it. The crowd was into it. The crowd, was really behind every player on the team. But this year it's just discombobulated,
Yeah. So, I think this series is over. I think everybody does. It's not impossible. Teams have come back from 3-1. It's not likely, I don't think, because you're asking a lot from a team that has been pretty inconsistent all year. So, looking ahead, just in case they do get eliminated, would you be upset if Kyrie left?
Kyrie's, he's a stellar athlete, and there's a lot of hype around Kyrie, and he's seen a lot of, he's won a championship in Cleveland, but I just don't see him as the Boston type of leader, as you saw in Paul Pierce or any of the Boston legends, even Isaiah Thomas. You could see him, really relating to the city. But, if Kyrie were to leave, it would take a hit. But, look at last year. We played entire playoffs without him, and we made it pretty far. We almost took down LeBron and the Cavs to make it to the finals, and that was without Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
So.
I'm actually a little torn on this. If you would have asked me this, especially last year and maybe during this year, I would have said, no, because you need NBA is about superstars. You need a star. And Kyrie, because I like the talent on this team, but they don't have a lot of players that can get an easy bucket for you. If it was a close game, you need a player that can get an easy bucket, and Kyrie could do that. Tatum's good, but I don't really see him as a guy who can do that.
Right.
Horford at times, but I don't know if you can really rely on Al Horford. But at the same time, I mean, yeah, his leadership has been bad. Like, I just don't. I don't know if you can come back with Kyrie as your best player on your team,
Right.
but I don't think it's as easy as just say get rid of him and things are just gonna get better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like you said, he is a playmaker, and when he's on the court, he's always a threat. But just the connections and the chemistry, the team chemistry he's had, I just don't see it as as beneficial as maybe another player, or the way I just keep looking back to and referring to last postseason, how crazy that run was without our two best players, Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving, but.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not even sure at this point. Gordon Hayward's the
Right,
second
exactly.
best player.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, and also Kyrie Irving decided to lighten up the mood by saying in his press conference about his bad performance, he said, "Who cares? We care."
Yeah, exactly.
What?
All the Boston fans out there watching care.
Yeah.
Right.
We freaking care. Come on. Like, do you care? I mean, like, I think Kyrie's just bad at PR.
I agree. I see that. I see that a lot too. Sometimes I'm just scrolling through like my Instagram feed and I'll see a Kyrie Irving interview and I'm like, oh well, he just said something that doesn't go well with like over for the Boston fans. It's just I don't know. I just don't see the lead. I always think that with Boston teams you need a leader.
Yeah.
Like a significant leader. Look at every single sport we've had a leader.
Yeah.
And Kyrie's just doesn't seem like the one to me.
Oh, and also I should mention Smart came back for Game 4, which was nice, even though he didn't do anything.
Right,
so.
exactly, yeah. You're hoping to see more of a presence.
Yeah. So, like I said, I mean, they could win the next game, and they would, but I just, at this point, they just dug themselves in too much of a hole I don't think they can come out of.
Yeah, no, it's going to take a miracle, and I never count, our teams out. Because, Boston's such a special city when it comes to sports, but, it is going to take a miracle and a lot of work. Brad Stevens is going to have to drop a lot of, different game plans for Giannis, but, we'll see. Hopefully we can maybe steal one or two, and if we can get to that point, then, battle for the last game, but.
Yeah, I really hope you're right.
Yeah.
All right, then why don't we take a break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about the Boston Celtics. I mean, no, not the the Boston Red Sox.
Awesome.
All right, then. Welcome back to J-Ho, the Sports Dude, and let's talk about something a little better, even though, the Celtics, I'm pretty sure, put us in a pretty down mood. So let's talk about a team that actually has been surging. So the Red Sox, who have had a pretty horrible start to the season, have been playing a little more consistent. It didn't start off great. They lost 2-1 to the Rays. With David Price pitching, pretty awful offensive performance by the Red Sox. Yep. Game 2, Chris Sale pitched, and he was not very good, allowing 4 runs in first 2 innings, and then they lost 5-2. But then things picked up when they swept the Oakland A's. In Game 1, Eduardo Rodriguez pitched. And pitched very well, and the Red Sox were able to win 9-4 based off a strong third inning where they scored 6 runs. Mm-hmm. Game 2, Rick Porcello pitched and had his best game of the season, and the Red Sox were able to win 5-1. But Game 3, bullpen game with Hector Velasquez pitching, and the Red Sox were able to win 7-3. And then next in the next series, they played the White Sox. And they basically dominated that series except for Game 1, in which they lost a pretty heartbreaking game in which they lost on a 3-run homer in the 9th by Nicky Delmonico, in which they lost off a 3-run homer in the 9th. And then Game 2, Chris Sale got his first win, and by far his best game this year, in which he allowed just a run, and the Red Sox were able to win 6-1. And then Game 3 was interesting. They won 15-2. I don't know if you watched this game.
I caught the tail end of it, but the damage
I saw some of the highlights. Like, this game was interesting. Like, yeah, like I've talked about some of the low moments for the season. This might be the high moment as far as dominance by the Red Sox. I don't know if you knew this, but in the third inning, they got 10 straight hits and scored 9 runs.
That was with 2 outs, right?
Yeah, with 2 outs.
That was a pretty absurd stat line.
Yeah, it was crazy. And so basically, after the third inning, it was over.
Yeah,
And
I mean, it's good to see that the Red Sox finally getting the bats going and like they were last year. Such an offensive team, and that stat line itself just shows you.
yeah,
what they
15 to
can
2
do.
on the scoreboard, and 21 hits to 7 hits for the White Sox. And then Rick Porcello pitched and won the game 9-2, and yeah. And then game 1 against the Orioles. Game 2 is actually today, so I don't know we could check that later. But game 1, the Red Sox unfortunately lost with a Jonathan Vilmer grand slam in the second. So yeah, I've liked overall what I've seen from this Red Sox team so far.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously they had a slow start, and a lot of teams, see a slow start, especially after a championship. But the way they've been playing the past few weeks, even the past month, they've been showing the signs of the old Red Sox. The driving force behind the Red Sox. The bats are getting going. Good to see Sale finally get a win.
Yeah.
After the pretty depressing start.
Yeah.
You hate to see our ace going down 0-5,
Yeah.
but
yeah, the first few games made me so depressed on how awful he was.
Yeah. It's tough to see your top guy just getting shelled.
I think what really stands out to me is just how good the starting pitching has been so far. Like Chris Sale has been better. I don't know if he's quite the I don't know if I'm sure if he's the Chris Sale from last year, but he's definitely been better. Rick Porcello has been much better because at the beginning of the year he was probably our worst pitcher.
Yep.
He was completely awful, but now he's been a lot more consistent. Rodriguez has been more consistent, and Price has, who for a while was probably our best pitcher, has been solid.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to finally see our pitching come around because it's been a problem of our concern the past few years. But
yeah, and offensively they've been better too. Ever since Michael Chavis, has stepped up, has came into the lineup, they've been playing a lot better after Swihart was traded and Pedroia got injured and was out of the lineup. So
yeah,
and Xander Bogaerts has stepped up too, along with Mookie and JD.
Yeah, it's good to see Bogaerts and Mookie and JD getting back in their rhythm. But the addition of Chavis is definitely He's been hitting home runs. He's been producing offensively. It's great. It's been awesome to see.
Yeah. Honestly, I think at this point, I'm not sure if I want Dustin Pedroia. I love Dustin Pedroia, but I don't know if I want him back in the lineup.
Yeah, I mean he's a good he's a veteran. He's a captain, and it's good to see him in the dugout. I mean he played a pretty pivotal role last year. With all the younger guys. He was a good guy to have in the dugout. So
yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think he could consistently stay healthy, and when he's healthy, he doesn't hit. And Michael Chavis has really stepped up. So I love Dustin Pedroia, but I don't know if I ever want to see him play again.
I know, I agree. I think he's gotten to the point in his career where, injuries are big, and he's pretty injury prone at this point, and he's a good guy to have around, but you don't know if you want him, in the lineup exactly. Right.
Yeah. So, all right then. Actually, let's check how the Red Sox are doing right now against the Orioles. Let's hope they're winning. All right. Well, it's 2-2 in the bottom of the second.
Great.
Yay.
Who's pitching?
I'm not sure. Let's quickly find out. Hector Velasquez.
Okay.
So this is a bullpen game.
Right.
So the bullpen is pitching in this game. So, So hopefully they win that game. And I just want them to go to 500, and then they can, because for a while they weren't a 500 team. So hopefully they can go to 500, and then they can get back on track.
Yeah, I mean, well, look at their division, man. I mean, the Yankees aren't playing as well as they, with all the injuries, but the Rays are, they're pretty good. They have a
Yeah.
pretty difficult division right now, and but it's good to see they're on the upswing, and hopefully they can keep up the
Yeah,
competition.
even though the Orioles and the Blue Jays are worse than pig stools. So.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like 60th of a good 60% of a good division.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I mean, the bottom two are pretty bad, so.
Yeah, and it's good to have those series, little
Yeah.
confidence boosters, but
All right. So why don't we go into some quick stories? So these are stories that we don't have a ton to say about, but they're big stories from the week, so we might as well talk about them. So first is the Kentucky Derby, and I mean, we're not really horse racing fans, even though we had a party.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
We have the Kentucky Derby party, but yeah. So this was pretty interesting. So Maximum Security, who was favorite to win, won the race. So most people weren't surprised by that, but he was disqualified after apparently moving into the other lane. So apparently in horse racing, horses are not allowed to move into their other lane, because if you do that, you could potentially knock over other horse, which could create a domino effect and hurt other horses, and that could lead to potential injuries.
Oh, I'd only imagine so. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the winner was Country House, who was a 64-1 odd underdog. So good for him, even though nobody's talking about Country House. So yeah, I mean. So what did you think when you heard that? Because I was pretty shocked.
Well, I don't know horse racing, as you said. I don't know the rules very well, but yeah, it's a tough loss. I mean, if clearly the favorite was Maximum Security, and losing in that manner, especially with a lot on the line, I know a few people who had money down. Obviously it's a Kentucky Derby. It's a big betting day, right? I know a lot of people had money down on Maximum Security, and to see him lose like that obviously affects a lot of people. But good for a horse, of those odds to come back and win.
Yeah,
it's a cool opportunity. And
yeah, have you ever bet on the Kentucky Derby?
I think I did for fun actually last year, but I had no idea I'd gone in. I had no knowledge about horse racing at all.
Either.
But it's fun. It's fun to I think everybody can gather and watch Kentucky Derby, the Kentucky Derby.
I mean, like, I'm not like you. I'm not a big horse racing guy.
Right.
I mean, like, I'll sort of like, it's a big sporting event. Like the World Cup. Like, I don't care much about soccer, but I'll watch the World Cup. So Kentucky Derby, I'll like keep my ear out and see what's going on.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. Next story. So Tom Brady was on Jimmy Kimmel, and I can't say he said anything new that we didn't already know. He said he loves the process of playing football, and he's not going to retire, and doesn't mind taking a discount for the team because he wants to have a good team, and Giselle makes a lot of money.
Yep.
And he threw a ball through Matt Damon's window.
Yeah.
Did you see this?
I did see that. I did see that little skit. That was
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny. Like I said, we didn't really learn anything about Tom Brady that we didn't already know.
Right.
So
Just the love of football.
yeah. All right, then. And I'll do a quick recap. I'll just do a quick update on all the NHL and NBA playoff seeding. So,
Awesome.
both Boston and Carolina have won their retrospective series, so they'll be playing in the Eastern Conference Finals. Today, the Dallas Stars and St. Louis Blues are going to be playing Game 7 in the West, and the Colorado Avalanche and San Jose Sharks will be playing a Game 7 also in the West. So good luck to Cal Makar and the Avalanche.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
UMass alum.
Yeah. And NBA playoffs, Rockets and Warriors are 2-2, and Blazers and Nuggets are 2-2. 76ers and Raptors are 2-2, and the only series that is at 2-2 is Celtics and Bucks. So
Yep, of course.
because why not? And also in the news, Josh Rosen was traded from the Cardinals to the Dolphins for a second-round pick, which isn't really shocking that Josh Rosen was traded.
Right.
What kind of shocked me was that the Dolphins would get him, because I kind of had the idea that they were going to tank for Tua Tagovailoa for next year.
Yeah.
So what was your reaction when you heard that?
Yeah, I thought that was also an interesting move. Tua was a great player, and I did think that they would, have a bust season for that reason. But now, I mean, Josh Rosen, he had a tough season. but he's a rookie, and I feel like the Cardinals just kind of gave up on him too early. I feel bad, but maybe he might have a promising future with the Dolphins.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Josh Rosen was bad. It wasn't his fault. He had a trash can of a team.
Exactly,
so
right.
His offensive line was literally a trash can. So
right, and that's the worst situation to be in. As a
Yeah.
rookie quarterback, just getting constant pressure.
And also, I found this out while doing research. The Dolphins got so they got in return for Josh Rosen. They got a fifth round 2020 pick, and they got a second round pick for this year, and they used it on Andy Isabella from UMass.
Yep, and one of my good friends. He's a great player. He one of the fastest guys I've ever seen. I'm sure one of the fastest guys the league will see. But yeah, really cool that they to look at it from that perspective that they traded specifically to get Andy Isabella.
Yeah. So, all right, next story. So today, Odell Beckham decided to open his mouth, and he says he plans to turn the Browns into the next Patriots.
It's a pretty bold statement, I would have to say.
Yeah. So I think I'm gonna go on a limb and say the Browns will never win 6 Super Bowls.
Yeah, I would say that as well.
You never know.
Like I said, I mean it's just Odell just trying to hype up his city. Trying to get Cleveland on their feet for the season.
Yeah, I like the Browns. I think they have a very talented roster. I think they have a very good chance to win the division and make the playoffs for since I think 2002.
Right.
It's
been a while. That's all.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
They're young and they're excited. They have a young roster.
Yeah.
I'm sure Beckham is happy moving from Eli Trash Manning to Baker Mayfield. But I don't know. Getting these much expectations for a young team sometimes can affect the team. So
right. Yeah, and it's interesting for him to say that. But Odell Beckham Jr. has always been a flashy, needs the attention kind of guy. But I think they, the Browns, they do have a lot of offensive threats. Baker Mayfield had a pretty solid season last year. But with another threat is in Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah.
Maybe they can put something together. Definitely wouldn't say Patriot level team.
Yeah. But I just need to see them get above 500 because they've been the dumpster fire of the league for many years.
The laughing stock, absolutely. Yeah.
So maybe we could see them. I think they can make the playoffs. I don't think they're gonna win a Super Bowl, but I don't know. Maybe crazier things have happened.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. It'd be cool to see though.
Yeah. And the last story. So NBA news. Monty Williams was hired by the Suns, and then Ty Lue is in talks to be hired by the Lakers. So good for Monty Williams, who was also in the run for Lakers coach, and then Ty Lue, I think I'm pretty sure guaranteed to basically be the Lakers head coach.
Yeah.
Do you think much of Ty Lue?
I never saw him as
Because I honestly don't.
Yeah, I never saw him as an elite coach, but because if you have LeBron on your team, he's a player coach himself, and it's interesting to see him talking going back to the Lakers with LeBron. But I don't know. I just think that with a player of LeBron caliber, I'm not sure if coaching is all that significant. Right?
Yeah, I agree. Sorry about that. So I don't know. I've always kind of seen Ty Lue as LeBron's puppet. He could just
exactly
because he's good friends with him, and he could just tell him to do what he wants.
Right.
I don't know. When I watch the Cavs, I don't think he's great at adjustments. He just doesn't have the demeanor of a coach. He just looks kind of goofy and
right.
Yeah, and mainly I just think LeBron just tells him what to do and
Right, exactly.
I think he serves LeBron tea too. So yeah. So I guess it's not a. I don't know. I just think LeBron, I don't know. I just don't. Obviously, how the Lakers will do will depend on how, the players they can get, and I'm honestly not that confident that they can get a lot of great players.
Yeah, LeBron, he needs. He's been looking for, threats. People you can actually rely on for the past few years, and they've kind of struck out in that aspect. But hopefully, I mean, I'd love to see LeBron back up on his feet because this, especially with
I
LeBron
don't.
out of the Eastern
don't.
Conference. No, I mean, come on. You have to say, without LeBron in the Eastern Conference, it's been a little stale. Without
No, it's
him in
been
the,
fine.
I don't know. I feel like him in the playoffs is, it's pretty prominent, especially with the Warriors winning it every single year. LeBron's almost like their kryptonite besides last year,
Or the year before that.
or the year before that. No, but it's cool to see, like one of the greats,
Yeah, I
playing
mean,
in
he's
the
a
playoffs.
great player and he's fun to watch, but like, I mean, I don't know, it's a little refreshing to not see him in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, it is. It's nice to see it, for
Yeah.
a year or two, but
Yeah. All right, so those are all the topics, but I'd rather not end on talking about the Lakers. So
I agree.
George Guay actually sent us a question to answer. So
Awesome.
So this is his question. So although the MVP is Harden or Giannis, do you think KD is the best player in the world?
Oh, this is a tough question. I always say that Kevin Durant and LeBron are the best players, but I don't know, the way that Giannis has been playing. He looks like the best player. His skill level, his ability to pretty much be untouchable is just like I don't know what else you could ask for out of an NBA player.
Yeah, and I think we'll just start up if I say KD's better than James Harden because James Harden plays no defense.
Absolutely, he's a one-way player, of course.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think I'm not the biggest Kevin Durant fan because I think I didn't like him going to Golden State. I think his attitude towards the media can be a little annoying, but I actually think KD's the best player because he plays both sides of the court.
Yeah.
And Giannis is a great player, but I think KD's a better shooter. And in the clutch, I want KD more than I want Giannis.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you have to look at it positionally. They're not the same position, right? And Giannis is just I don't think I can think of a single player in the NBA that can efficiently guard Giannis.
Yeah.
Same goes with Kevin Durant, but
Yeah.
it's a tough question because they're not the same position. They play different styles of basketball. But I love to see how much even more Giannis progresses in the future. Like right now he's unstoppable, but in the next 3 or 4 years, will he continue that or will he continue to get better?
Yeah.
It's interesting to see.
Yeah. So yeah, that answers that question. And I forgot to mention, Charlie McAvoy got suspended for 1 game for his pretty stupid hit in the Columbus Blue Jackets Game 6. I don't think it's gonna make much of a difference. This team has played well with injured players, including Charlie McAvoy. I just think the depth and the talent and Tuukka Rask playing well is not gonna make much of a difference for Game 1. It might, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So so why don't we end this off with the Boston question? So Ben, what is your favorite team what's your favorite team?
Favorite team, out of all sports has to be the Patriots. I've grown up. My dad was born and raised in Hawaii, and he chose the Vikings as his team. And ever since a kid, he's been trying to convince me to be a Vikings fan, but I couldn't do it. The Patriots are just my team. My friends convinced me to be a Patriots fan, and ever since I've just been a diehard Patriots fan. And
Yeah.
with Brady, it makes it pretty easy to to follow
Well,
him.
good thing he didn't convince you to be a Vikings fan because you would be drinking and crying a lot during
Yeah,
football games.
pretty miserable life.
Because
I'd
being
say.
because the Vikings have experienced some of the worst losses in NFL history.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's tough to see my dad, sad every time the playoffs come around and they're not in, but
Yeah. Yeah. Good luck with Kirk Cousins.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Not very promising
Yeah.
over there.
Yeah. So, all right then. That might be the end for our podcast. So, thank you for being here, Ben. You have anything to say?
No, I just really appreciate you having me out here. It's been a long time coming, and I had fun. It's great. Graduation's around the corner, and
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah. I think this might be my last podcast as far as at school. I'll continue doing it probably from home, just maybe not as common.
Right.
So yeah, it's been crazy this year doing this podcast. Like like I just started doing it as a way of doing it for fun and like saying my opinions and like having people come on to talk about sports. And ever since I started, the Red Sox and Patriots have won championships. So.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, I think you kind of have to continue doing this, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
So, all right then. Thank you for listening to J-Ho the Sports Dude. Don't worry, I'll still produce sports content, and if this is my last one from UMass, it was good to be here for 4 years, and thank you for listening to J-Ho the Sports Dude, and I'm out.